What have you eaten? Not realizing what it was until it was too late. A co-worker tossed me what at the time I assumed to be a green gumball. It was a green paintball and I chomped into it with great force. I once left a carton of orange juice open overnight at Reading Festival. Took a swig of it the next morning as a hangover cure and thought to myself, could have sworn I bought this with no pulp. Poured a bit out and turns out it was literally just full of ants. I grew up thinking I was allergic to coconut. Recently, I was unknowingly eating ice cream made with coconut milk over a few days and didn't have any reactions. Maybe I outgrew it. There are some food allergies you can grow out of. I'd get retested if you're able to, just to be sure. I was drunk, eating a kebab in the kitchen one night. I dropped a bit of meat on the floor, picked it up off the floor and put it in my mouth. It was a slug. I was eating a piece of purple Laffy Taffy when I was about 8 years old. I felt a hard piece while I was chewing and for some reason I thought they added nerds to it, so I kept chewing. I thought it was weird that I couldn't break the nerd by chewing, so I just swallowed. Then I moved my tongue around my mouth to get any extra bits of taffy when I felt an empty space in between my teeth. The loose tooth I had for a week or two was gone. That's when I realized I swallowed my loose tooth and got really sad that I couldn't get any money from it. I did the same thing when I was a kid. Thankfully my dad is a little crap with a sense of humor, so when I woke up the next day, there was a £1 coin on the lid of the toilet, and the scuba backpack thingy from my stepbrother's Action Man. Whoa, an Ask Reddit I can finally contribute to. As child, we'd hop the fence to the neighbors and eat ground apples. I took a bite of a nice looking one and noticed half a worm when I went to take another bite. A few years later, a neighbor gave us an unfinished box of breakfast cereal their kids didn't like, but we loved. I was eating it dry, out of the box, when a sibling poured milk onto theirs and weevils floated to the surface. In high school, I poured a cup of coffee and felt something on my tongue. It was an earwig that had been inside the mug when I poured. Lastly, in college I worked in a donut shop for a summer. I was eating a raspberry filled when I noticed seeds in the filling. Our filling doesn't have seeds, and seeds don't squirm. I may have some of the worst luck when it comes to food. Damn, you got crappy neighbors. Went to Mexico when I was really small to visit my dad's family. They have a farm and while we were there they slaughtered a pig to have a barbecue and I started crying and went inside, and a while later my mom came inside and gave me some tacos. Into my second one my mom told me, "See, doesn't the pig taste good?" I started crying again. LMAO. When you said LMAO I felt that. Once upon a time, as a broke butt college student, is there really any other kind? I couldn't afford medical and was nursing myself through a wicked bout of flu. Had a nice little 6-station set up on the futon with some water cups and a box of saltines and a bath bucket trash can. About 3 days in, woke up in the wee hours and needed some water. Reached over my head, half delirious, and grabbed what I thought was my water cup. It was, instead, a travel mug of old coffee. Terrible, cheap coffee. So it had been loaded with milk and sugar to make it palatable. Sugar and milk that had molded. What I actually swallowed was a quarter-sized chunk of blue-green mold. It was like swallowing a cold, hairy coat button. Thankfully I couldn't taste much through the sinus blockage. Didn't touch coffee of any kind for a couple of years afterward. Glad to hear you survived eating that. I was 5 or 6 in the back of my dad's car and I thought I saw red candy on the floor. I picked it up and popped it in my mouth. I had instant regret. It was a large glob of dried ketchup and the inside of it was still moist. It was like a ketchup flavored gusher. Of all the crap in this thread, this makes me the most uncomfortable. I'm a fan of eating mint leaves. I picked mint leaf from my school garden and popped it in my mouth. In fact, there was a huge wasp on it, which I ate half of and stung me in the mouth. This mint tastes extra spicy. Thought I was picking up a bit of crisp potato chip that had fallen onto my bed when I saw a look of horror on my sister's face and realized at the exact moment that it touched my tongue that it was, in fact, a piece of dead skin she had just picked off her foot. I was over my in-laws' house one weekend and they had a bag of Hershey Kisses out, so I grabbed a few and ate them. My boyfriend saw and asked for a couple. I bit into one more to see a maggot wiggling around. It took everything in me to keep my composure and not throw up because my boyfriend would have been throwing up all night had I told him. I still live with this secret and I think I always will. As God is my witness, I will never eat Hershey's again. Not me, but happened to my sister. When we were in the Philippines, we don't have enough food for the day, so what we do is put rice in a cup of coffee. That's our dinner for most days. So one day, we're having our usual meal while watching TV. As soon as she had her first bite, there's something long and chewy with the rice. She spit it out. Found out that the long and chewy in her mouth is, in fact, a lizard. It fell on the cup when she put it beside the TV. Poor lizard. I have many questions, yet I'm not sure which I want to ask. Bird crap. When I was a kid, we used to have chocolate pudding on the sofas with cream. One day we had pudding and mum came through and there on the sofa was this smear of white and brown substance. She flipped, said it was chocolate pudding. We're too messy, blah blah. And I fought against this. Like heck was I messy. I was absolutely sure that it was not chocolate pudding. So I tasted it to see. Declared it to not be chocolate pudding. And later that night mum realized when she looked at her sandals there was a great big dirty bird crap on it that she'd smeared on the sofa. And that, kids, is why you don't wear your shoes in the house, let alone on the furniture. When I was maybe 6 or 7, I saw my dad drinking what I thought was Pepsi. He went upstairs for something and I went and took a huge swallow, then puked. It was Bacardi and Pepsi. Pepsi makes me barf too. Came inside after a hot summer day and found a nice fresh mug of milk on the counter, except it was congealed grease. Another time I ate 90% of my tofu soup to find a baby cockroach at the bottom, so that was nice. I threw up. Who the frick just drinks out of a random cup of liquid you find? Was at a golf tourney a few weeks ago and was offered a brownie, but was informed after I had finished it that it was a weed brownie. This was about 3 weeks ago and I had just lost my job and was going job searching soon. So I was gonna have to take drug tests in the near future and I was freaking livid. It worked out though. I took a drug test last week and start my new job on Monday, but the whole ordeal gave me lots of anxiety for a while. Who gives someone a weed brownie without telling them beforehand? That's messed up. I ate a whole bowl of cereal with my own breast milk in it. Ex-mother-in-law made me it for me while I was staying there. I thought it tasted kind of funny, but it didn't register. I only found out when I was short one bottle of milk I was sure I pumped. When I asked her, she said she used one of the bottle of milk for cereal in the morning. I honestly think she did it on purpose. Our relationship wasn't the best at the time. I don't really remember it. I might kinda remember my sister getting really upset. We were told it was fried chicken, but it was the rabbits we raised in the backyard. IDKY, this reminds me of when my rabbit died, and my dad didn't dan to throw it away because trash didn't come for a few days, instead of, burying it, so he put it in the freezer. That's how I found out my rabbit had died, because I got home and went to get a popsicle, only to find my bunny in there. Back in high school, my friends were talking about something at the lunch table and I was daydreaming, not paying attention. Artsy friend hands me a peanut butter cookie and I just said thanks and mindlessly popped it into my mouth. Chewed it, swallowed it, thought it tasted like crap. My friend was horrified. Turns out it was some clay disc she'd been working on all day to add to her sculpture. My grandma always used to put Clorox in Sprite bottles for some reason, and my little brother took a big butt gulp of it and we ended having to call the paramedics, lol. Mayo, why the frick would you put it in Sprite bottles? Used to go to church back when I was a kid. They would always give us a bowl of cereal for breakfast, and I remember this on day when they served Cheerios, and as all the kids were eating I looked down on my bowl and found out it was literally filled with little maggots. Turns out I wasn't the only one eating maggots that day. I was a kid and asked if I could eat my dad's pickle he hadn't eaten yet. He looked around confused and realized I was asking about his squash, so he got a bug crap eating grin and said, "Help yourself." I shoved it in my mouth, got wide eyes, and was about to spit it out when my father said I had to swallow it because we were at a restaurant. He later told me he would have spit it out anyway because of how much he hates squash. Have never been a big fan of squash since though. Really have to be careful who you tell the "I ate my dad's pickle" story to. One of my habits that my wife can't stand is that I will drink cold drinks without a care in the world. That glass of apple juice from this morning? Whatever, I'll finish it. The large soda from Wendy's that's been sitting next to my computer for 3 days? Whatever man, it's just a little watered down now. Down the hatch. One time, we had gotten burritos, and then like 2 or 3 days later I noticed we forgot to throw out a drink in a styrofoam cup. I figured, hey, free drink, and took a huge swig of it. It was Horchata. Horchata is milk based. I pretty much insta-power vomited out several chunks of brown molded sugar dairy, and to this day I still crinkle my nose before drinking Horchata. It still tastes delicious, but I get a flashback every time I get near it. That's what you get. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes, man. LOL. Someone on the playground back in 6th offered me chocolates shaped like bugs. So I took one. It's just chocolate. Well, turns out it was bugs dipped in chocolate. I threw up right then and there. That's how you know which kid is a psychopath. Nail polish remover. I had fallen asleep after painting my nails and left it on my nightstand right next to a bottle of water. In my half asleep state, they looked the same. It burned so bad. Sounds horrible. I hate when I drink the wrong thing I meant to. It seems to take a moment to register that the taste is not right and not what your mind was expecting to be drinking. I ate Rocky Mountain oyster. God dang bull testicles when I was 9 years old. My grandpa bought it from the local butcher and fried them up. He told me it's a special kind of fish. Everyone was gathered around the table and couldn't stop laughing as I was struggling just to get it down. I knew something was up. And no, it was not good. Frick you, family. Not me, but my cousin. He was visiting from Denmark and his English wasn't great. We were at a Brazilian steakhouse and the server came around with chicken heart. My mouth was full so I couldn't tell him what it was, so he gladly accepted. Halfway through chewing he asked me, what is this, me chicken him? What kind of chicken? I busted up laughing. They're good though. Not me, but my mum. When my dad took her to meet his parents for the first time, they, as a joke, fed her some of the rhubarb they were growing, raw. For context, they powder the stuff up and in limited doses it's the stuff that makes warheads and other similar candies so bitter. She took a large bite of the raw stock. I'm amazed they ended up getting married. I eat raw rhubarb every year. It's sour but not that bad. You should try it dipped in maple syrup. Of course, if it is dried and powdered it would make it considerably stronger and concentrated. Not really what I ate but what I drank. Ran into the house thirsty as heck because I had been outside running around with friends and I see this picture of what looked like lemonade, so I pour myself a glass and down it. Stepdad walks in and I tell him lemonade's good but needs sugar, in which he responded, what lemonade? I'm the one on the kitchen counter. Oh, that's sewage water from the sink? It was leaking. This is the worst thing I've read today. I always get tricked at certain Chinese restaurants. I order egg rolls not knowing there's shrimp in them until I've eaten half of them. I guess I should start asking at new places before ordering them. I was really tired one morning while I was in high school. I made cereal and milk in the dark, but I poured orange juice over frosted flakes and took a bite. My brother used to date a British girl and at one point she brought her toddler son to the States for a visit. The little boy had never seen goldfish crackers and thought they were cereal, so my dad proceeded to fill a bowl with goldfish and pour milk over the top. Poor little Georgie looked awfully confused. Stayed with a host family in Thailand. They made a noodle soup dish. I kept feeling something that popped whenever I ate it. Looked down to see my noodle soup filled with carpenter ant eggs and half-grown carpenter ants. Just the visual made me feel sick, but if it's cooked with eggs, it's fine. Worked at a restaurant a few years ago with some guys from Mexico. They would cook lunch in the kitchen sometimes and invite me to join them sometimes. One day they handed a taco to me and told me to eat it. I ate half of it and said, "This is good." "What is it?" one of the cooks said. "Lengua." I said, "What does that mean?" He stuck his tongue out and pointed at it. I said, "Oh cool." Well, it tasted pretty good. I absolutely love lengua. Whenever my wife and I go to any legit Hispanic restaurant I'll look for it. I judge a Hispanic restaurant by the quality of their lengua. A dog biscuit that was intentionally baked to look like a normal cookie. Damn it. Pass me, you bamboozled present me by buying your dog cute treats. Chewing. I don't know why, but suddenly I feel like quite the good boy. Ate the spiciest curry in the world, 8 million Scoville units. I knew it would be torture, and believe me when I say the willpower it took me to finish the bowl was unrevealed. What I didn't know was that I would be on the toilet, writhing in pain for literally 8 hours until I asked for an ambulance to be called. Was doing an Easter egg hunt in a year where amongst the chocolate eggs, my mum had got some colorful chewing gum eggs too. Found what I thought was a lovely turquoise chewing gum egg, which was actually a rotten sparrow egg which had fallen from the nest. Whoops. Mold. I made a burger and sat down in my living room with the lights out to eat it. I noticed it tasted odd, so I inspected the burger with the light from my phone. The entire bottom of the bun was covered in mold. I was a very strange child. When I was around 4 or 5 years old, I would sit by myself on a bench during lunchtime at school, under a tree. I'd eat there blissfully, enjoying the scenery around me, eating homemade sandwiches that my mum packed for me. I was a slow eater, which is something I have now grown out of, so I would put my sandwich down at times and I guess continue admiring the nature surrounding the playground. But Christ, did the sandwiches taste like crap after I resumed eating them? My little mind couldn't figure it out. I assumed it was the avocado my mum put in the sandwiches, which I used to think was green cheese. My little mind didn't even bother to think of looking at the sandwiches as I ate them. This went on for months, until one fateful day, when I noticed a pigeon taking a crap on my sandwich from the tree. It just spatted all over my sandwich. I was devastated, but it didn't stop there. Oh, no, it did not. My dumbass little 4 or 5 year old self thought I should continue eating the sandwich. Why, you ask? I have no idea. Perhaps I wanted to see if it was the pigeon turd that was causing the terrible taste, or perhaps I didn't want to get told off for not eating my lunch. Whatever reason it was, the pigeon crap definitely didn't turn the sandwich into a 5-star meal. Needless to say, I did not eat under that tree again. I, unfortunately, know the taste of bird turds myself. Growing up, we had a boysenberry patch in the backyard. I have accidentally, many times, ate boysenberries, or more accurately chewed and spit out if I realized soon enough with bird crap on them. I had Sichuan hot pot in a very local place in Chengdu. They gave each of us a bowl of sesame seed oil, along with a shared bowl of chemical. Message: I decided I don't like oily food, so didn't use the sesame oil dip. Just as we were finished eating, my friend said to me, "Hey, try to help people, you must be really accustomed to very spicy food. You didn't use the oil." Yep, oil was there to protect your stomach. 4 hours later I was standing in the shower, every orifice an exit, my body a huge organic pump. Postscript: I found out 3 years later that in Sichuan Provence, they don't refill the soup when one customer is done. They just top it up. Apparently it makes it more flavorsome. I had secondary retching after hearing that 3 years later. Lesson learned: use the oil. No, the lesson is not to eat soup in Sichuan. I was in college and drinking with friends at my house. We decided to pop some popcorn in an air popper. With most air poppers, they have a little cup on the top where you can melt butter, and one of my roommates threw some in there. When the popcorn was done, he just threw the contents of the cup on the popcorn, not realizing the butter hadn't fully melted. I quickly realized it when I suddenly had half a stick of unmelted butter in my mouth. I spit it out immediately, but it coated my mouth, my tongue, and the back of my throat with a film of butter. Went to restaurant on the beach. Only light was thinly citronella candles. I knew my brother cut the fat off his steaks. I reached over and grabbed a bite and popped it in. It was a gristly piece he had already chewed on and spit out. I stopped eating off his plate forever. This was about 35 years ago. He knew what he was doing. I thought the pickled ginger you get on the side with sushi was more fish, so I put it all in my mouth. I love that stuff though, could easily eat a whole mouthful. I was walking around my house while talking on the phone. I sat on my roommate's bed and took a swig of beer from the bottle I just placed on his nightstand. Except it wasn't my beer. It was the beer bottle he had been using to spit his nasty sick butt phlegm into. I guess he had a cold. My friend's mother accidentally ate the rotten better button that had just fallen off her newborn baby. She thought it was chocolate. My grandparents were big on hikes and used to take us grandchildren along sometimes. We were joining a big group and so brought along a lot of water bottles. My grandma saw one out on their kitchen counter and snagged it before leaving, then later offered it to me on the trail. I wasn't older than 9 at the time. My grandfather had a lot of chemicals. Being a chemist engineer, I'm not sure what this particular chemical was that he'd stored in a random water bottle. Maybe something with developing photos. But it sure as heck wasn't the H2O I was expecting. Spit it across the trail. I'm just glad I didn't hit anybody with it. Nastiest stuff I ever tasted. I check the seal on all bottles religiously to this day. I can ask my GMA later what it could have been, but my granddad isn't around to ask anymore. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.